All right. So, what's up, Mike? How are you?
How we doing, man? Not too bad. How you hanging in there?
How's that for an intro? So, hey. So Mike, we did a podcast a couple of weeks back, and I had a really good time chatting with you, and we talked a little bit more about like trying to do something a little bit more often. And an idea that we came up with here is going through people's execution on this and talking through kind of how we both look at training. And I'm curious to hear like your thoughts about some of the cues that I use, and I'm sure you're kind of the same way. And I think we both agree, and we kind of talked about it before this, is like the people who do invest in the training side of things and really put a lot of effort into it, and send videos and get feedback on it and execute on that feedback tend to make really crazy progress. So I think that this is a really cool opportunity for anybody who watches to, like, if you want to send in your stuff and get some cool execution feedback, like I'd like to do this pretty regularly. I think it's a cool service that nobody's really doing.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are watching this and are interested in getting feedback here, I mean, this is a service I provide. I know others do, where, obviously most of us do regular, full service coaching, but what we're talking about here is a bit more tailored to how you're executing, not just like, are you going close to or arriving at failure, but how are you actually executing the movement? Are you initiating with the tissue you're trying to grow? Are you executing in a way that's going to keep your joints safe? Because if you chase progressive overload long enough, shit is going to start to hurt. It's just a matter of fact. And the more you can do to align joints and the movement to the tissue you're trying to grow, the more you're going to be able to avoid those issues. Not that you're ever going to be able to avoid them in totality, because we all get aches and pains, but
Yeah.
The more you can do to keep those aligned and keep things moving smoothly, the longer you can do this, the longer you can chase a movement, any single movement for any amount of time, the longer you can do that, the more progress you're going to get. I think you and I are pretty common in that I don't like to change my training, right? If I can do the same movement every week and continue to get progress out of it, why would I go and make any changes to it? So,
Yep. And like the changes that you would make are very minimal anyways, because it's like you're still going to end up doing the same pattern. It's more or less that like
right.
you find one machine that feels a little bit better than another and that you can progress on. It's like a leg press is a leg press. There's pretty minor variations to what they do. It's a matter of how you utilize that movement,
Right.
So
Yeah,
you want to kick it off with one of your videos first, man?
Yeah, sure. So we put both of us put a kind of a teaser up to see if you guys would be interested in anything. The two that I got feedback from were a hip thrust and incline Smith, which in reality could be really any incline pressing movement.
Sure.
Because that really doesn't change all that much.
Yep.
But the hip thrust, I know you and I discussed briefly prior that's something you and I both see that's executed kind of incorrectly pretty often. So if we'll start there, and I'm going to use a client, one of my guys that's been just working me exclusively for training, has progressed his physique in an insane way for someone who's as deep into his bodybuilding as he is. And I want, let this be a lesson to anybody watching, that it really doesn't matter when you pick this up or when you choose to go chase and, make this a focus of yours. Focusing on how you execute training and how you get to failure is going to benefit you no matter what stage of your career. Even if you're not a bodybuilder, if you're just someone who goes to the gym 3 times a week to stay fit, why not make those 3 days the best they can be and get the most out of them? Go home and enjoy the rest of your life. So, so I'll start with this one, and again, this is going to be for a hip thrust.
Will it let you share it?
On here.
Let's hope so, because that's gonna be a problem.
Let's see how this works.
Here. Hey, there we go. It's sharing.
All
cool.
Right. Might be a little hard for y'all to see. Yeah. Anyway, this is Mike. Lost it there. He's been plugging along for a minute, but came to work with me for almost a year ago now. I think he's put on something like 30 or 40 pounds. We can look at the before and afters. He works with AJ Sims on the rest of his coaching, but hip thrust was the one that I got the immediate interest in. And like you said, you and I have seen this executed incorrectly. And Mike's been with me for a while now. So this actually looks pretty good. While we're watching this video, and I'll try and let it play on repeat, the biggest cues I see that are missed or done incorrectly are the angle of your lower leg and how deep you're taking this movement. I don't know where you fall on this, but in my opinion, this isn't really like a stretch draw movement, right? You're not getting a shit ton of hip flexion out of this. There are better ways to get hip flexion in the gym than in a hip thrust. So you notice as you watch Mike executing here, he's not dropping, way down as low as this machine will go, almost into like a, pseudo leg press position. He's staying relatively shallow. And all the benefit we're getting out of this is the squeeze at the top, especially where the weight's the heaviest on these kinds of machines. And you notice his legs aren't perfectly perpendicular to the ground, not that they need to be. But another big cue, the more you can get those legs perpendicular to the ground or the platform, the more you're going to be able to maximize the angle, the change of angle at your hips versus the change of angle at your knees. So something for you guys to keep an eye on there. I mean, and obviously, I'll keep replaying this. If you get any comments on how he's doing here, what you cue for this movement, but feel free.
Yeah, I mean, he's moving a lot of fucking weight. That's great. And I completely agree with you there of like, there's no need to you don't have to fold yourself in half. You're not really going to get like a fully lengthened glute, like that. Like,
right.
How much do we need to bend over to get the stretch on it? You know what I mean? It's like, definitely not necessary to me, but he's got a great range of motion here, great execution. He's showing control from the top and the bottom. I think one of the biggest things with any movement pattern, not just hip thrusts, is showing a difference in the concentric and the eccentric, showing me that you're in control of it and you are actually moving the weight versus just throwing it around, those are all great things there. The one thing that that I noticed that he kind of does as he pushes is like, because of where his legs are, like as soon as he goes to lift the weight up, his hips and torso want to shift backwards, like they want to go this way, right? And he's going to lose output that way. So if he can stay planted and just push straight up into it, maybe be a little bit lower on the pad, and then focus on, instead of like pushing up and back, just pushing straight up, I think he'll get just a little bit more out of it. But the number one thing that I always see with hip thrust is people just trying to arc their back. You know what I mean? Like they end up like bent, like they're doing a powerlifting bench press, and they're all lower back, and then they're wondering why their back hurts when they do hip thrusts. It's the same people who wonder why their back hurts when they do deadlifts. It's like, because you're not using your glutes. You're just arcing your back and going, it's like you didn't pick up a heavy girl at the club and bring her home. Like we're looking to train your glutes here. You know what I mean? So those are the biggest things that I see, is like, there's a back pad. Keep your fucking back on it.
Yeah. The big thing for me, especially with leg training, because, you do this long enough, you get strong enough, moving weight from A to B, right, is anyone can do that for the most part. Like anyone can get really strong on a pattern of movement. But the thing I stress with people a lot is, are you initiating the movement with the tissue you want to grow, right? Because I can toss you into a leg press and you can bounce out of the bottom and you might be able to move 10, 12 plates, but is it on your quads or is it on your glutes where you want it? Or are we simply just trying to move the weight from the top to the bottom? The same thing with, with these or with leg extensions or really anything it goes back to your comment on control. For me, that control is, are you getting a little bit of a micropause at the top, a little bit of a micropause at the bottom? And are you thinking about the motion that's going to initiate the movement with the tissue we're trying to grow? In this case, as you mentioned, we're trying to get hip movement. Are you initiating that by squeezing your glutes? And easiest way to do that is simply to kill your momentum at the bottom and think about what your glutes want to do in this movement. And maybe one more cue that isn't so apparent here, but is huge for people, is, at least for me, is a little bit of an outward turn at the toes and being wide enough to let your stance to let your legs kind of assume a pattern where as you're coming up, your knees are ending kind of out. If you know what your glute does, right? Your glute really doesn't want to go inside to outside. It wants to go outside to inside, right? So a little bit wider in the stance. Give yourself some room for your legs to open at the bottom and to close the top, and get, I don't want to say aligning the movement with the direction of your tissue, but that's kind of what it is, right? Like your glute wants to perform a certain movement. We can set it up to do any number of things, but if you want to get the most out of this movement on your glutes, you want to make sure you're aligned that way. So
yep. And let me unshare your screen right quick. Let me share this because I have me doing hip thrust, and the only reason I want to share it is because whoops, I hit the wrong button. I was about to stop our recording. The only reason I want to share it is because it's the new tech. The new tech machine, and it's exactly what you were saying just a second ago, of like that knee going out and the foot pad actually moves. So I'll get my cursor out of the way. Like it literally puts you into that position there. Now, I like this thing a lot. Some people don't, but I like that small little twist in is phenomenal. Contraction at the top. Just get a crazy squeeze on it. Looking back on it, I'd like to see myself not rush quite so much out of the top there and get a little bit more of that micro pause they were talking about. But yeah, that's exactly kind of what we're seeing, like that intention. You might not have a machine that has a pad that moves this way, but the intention is kind of that same thing of like twist your feet into the floor, and you're gonna notice when you do it right. And the biggest thing here, as we always say, is make sure that you are not just slapping weight on there to move it around. Like you're going to realize when you start to make these small execution changes that you're going to need to use less weight. So that's first and foremost. So did you have an incline video?
Yeah, I don't have an Incline Smith one handy. I'm sure if I look long enough, I can find it, but it really goes for any incline movement. So I'm going to use Mike again, because he's a great example of someone who's developed a lot of training skill while he's been working with me. So we're just going to go to a video of his again. And unfortunately for him, I have a lot more cues in this than his hip thrust. But he's always a good sport about it, and he's taken everything in stride. So as we watch this, you know, obviously we're focused on we want to focus on the chest here. But for me, the core mechanics of getting your chest open on the press is easy. It's really about where your elbows are. And if you notice here, he's starting the press at the bottom, and I'll pause it here at the bottom for you. Depth is good. Whoop. Depth is good, but this is where my comment earlier on joint alignment really comes into play. And also in this case, this will, when you do this correctly, will take some load off your front delt and throw it onto your pec where it belongs. But you'll notice how at the bottom of this movement, his elbow has kind of turned over, right? We're no longer scooping that elbow up closer to our body and pressing straight up. We're pressing kind of almost against the machine and almost turning this into a flat press at the bottom. And what that's going to do eventually, two things. One, it's going to place more stress on your front delt. And two, that misalignment between where the weight is pushing down and what you're pushing against is going to add torque at your shoulder and on an axis that we do not want, right? We only want torque on the axis that gets our elbow to move in the path we need to move in to stimulate our upper pec and, you know, ideally some of your middle and lower as well. But whenever you get that elbow turning over, almost immediately, there's only two things that are going on. One, you're just not proficient enough at the skill. Two, the load's probably too heavy because your body is going to default into a movement pattern that is going to allow it to move weight. A lot of people are delt dominant pressers, right? And that's why you don't see these big, massive chests as often as you see guys with dominant front shoulders and their shoulders tucked into their chest because they're just so tight. When you're doing this press, and it doesn't matter what press it is, incline just happens to accentuate it because of the angle of the bench. What I see most often is that elbows are way too flared. We're in much more of a T than we should be. And part of this is some of the grip angles on these machines kind of suck. And you guys probably gonna have to get comfortable being uncomfortable with kind of that false grip without being able to wrap your thumb, laying the grip across your palm rather than inside of it. So you can turn your hand out to be able to get your elbow in as opposed to this pressing like that.
Man, so I did that. I did that on the new tech press, and that fucker slipped out of my damn hand. So just be careful. It is a good thing that it is a machine, but just be careful with that false grip.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, these new rubber grips they put on everything. Give me a knurled grip, metal grip.
The shit out of me, man. And I was in the set. I was going, and my hand just. Whoop, I was like, oh shit.
But this one's big for me because I think most people doing this will end up with a shoulder problem or an elbow problem at some point, maybe both.
Yeah.
And especially for the elbows, man, when you get that like tennis elbow feeling, that shit hurts, right? Real bad. It stings like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And it can make training just generally unpleasant. And on top of that, if we're going to go through all that pain, we should at least be getting the stimulus we want out of it, which you're almost certainly not if you're getting to this, this point where your elbows are turning over instead of facing towards towards your upper pec. And this goes for any press. So it doesn't matter if it's flat, doesn't matter if it's low incline, high incline, or completely vertical. You're almost always going to be more comfortable, get more stimulus, and eventually be able to use more load. Not that you'll get it you'll get it day one, but when you ingrain that movement pattern, you will be able to move more weight more effectively and more comfortably if you keep an eye on where that elbow path is and where it is in relation to your torso.
Right. The biggest thing that I'll touch on, and like I agree with everything you say there, is like as soon as that elbow wants to like drift this direction, like you just gotta you can feel it as soon as you turn it. It just gets more and more up my delt when I do that. My forearm is cramping as I do that right now. I just trained before this, but so the more that elbow creeps up, the more it goes into that front delt, and then that like shitty bicep pec tendon area that comes together, and you're going to end up with really bad pain there. Like that's where my pain would always be. Right. So now when I press myself or I'm telling someone to press, I almost want them to like scoop under. Right. So find whatever comfortable position is that you want. And it's all going to be based off your shoulder and your rib cage. Right. If you're a really big individual, you might have to fuck around with your elbow position. Right. So like for me, it's going to be anywhere from like here to like here. Right. In that range is where most people are going to live. Right. Is here, not up here. Right. So you're in that position and I'm kind of like scooping under. Right. I get under the weight and push up with it. And one of the people that actually like really gave me a great cue was Mike Van Wyck, and the kind of like position of lifting your torso as you get into that press, really leading with the chest, and that shoulder gets to tuck under and not get in that dominant position like you were talking about, where people get really front delt dominant. That has fucking changed my chest a ton, right? And anytime I can get somebody to understand to get under the weight and lift that weight up off of themselves, that's when they start to really go like, oh man, I'm using my chest, and as another thing to continue to drive home the same point we have already made, you're going to need to use less weight, right? Just like Mike said already, like I think the simplest way for your guy there to fix some of those issues that you were pointing at there is not do a set of 5 reps. You know what I mean? Like pull some of that weight back and do a set of like 8 to 10, with a little bit better form. And he's not going to have as hard time keeping that position. So that's definitely a huge one.
Yeah, on that point, and I've had this conversation with some young guys recently, is everybody wants to be strong. It looks really cool to move weight in the gym. I personally, if I could get huge with the pink dumbbells, I would be doing it because it hurts to train as heavy as I have to train to get stimulus, right? But the lower rep ranges that have been popularized by the science-based crowd, it's not wrong. Like they're correct. You can get plenty of hypertrophy stimulus at 5 to 6 reps. The difference is, do you have, and I mean this when I say this skill to get the stimulus where it needs to be when the weight is that heavy. And it's not that it's I can do this, you can't kind of thing. It's you'll get to a point in your career where you've done thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. And it doesn't matter what load I put on the bar, whether it's a 2-rep set or a 20-rep set. If you've done this long enough, you're going to be able to put that stimulus where it needs to be and not become, fall into the pattern of just moving weight from A to B. And that takes a long time to develop.
Exactly.
The immediate jump to, 5 reps is all we need. That might be true. 5 reps might be enough for you to get, stimulus in the, at failure. And maybe that's it. But are those 5 reps actually what they need to be for someone who's been in the gym 2 to 4, 6, even 8 years? Because I've been at this, over a decade, and it only recently, to be honest, in chasing the whole progressive overload thing, have I been able to, when I expand my volume up to 3 sets, I like to go the first set really heavy. We're talking like 6 to 8. Second set, 8 to 10 to 12. Third set, 10 plus. Only recently has that lower rep set really been like, yeah, that was heavy, but that was all on my middle back, right where I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
That was all on the upper pec, right where I wanted it to be.
Yep.
The other thing about chest is I think, I don't know if it's just not appreciated or we just don't focus on it, but specifically the fan shaped muscles. So really your pecs and your lats. It's not as much to do with like what direction are your fibers running, but we have the advantage of having leverage around our rib cage for both lats and pecs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I can get a good lat stimulus here, right? Because I can get a stretch and I can get a contraction. But if I come here, now I get way bigger of a stretch, and you can't tell me that a lat movement here feels anything close to a lat movement here, right? And the same thing goes for chest. You might be able to get stimulus on your upper pec with your elbow out here, but if you can turn this here and wrap that around your rib cage, get that extra stretch and initiate from there and get a full contraction, you're going to have a better chest day. You're going to have a better chest.
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree, man. I think your point of leveraging your rib cage and actually using it for what it's like, let the muscles move around it, is something that people just have no concept of, and it's I get it. I understand it, because you're thinking like, let me just move my limb, right? You're not understanding that the way the muscles orient and move around things, it's like the thing I always tell people is like back movements or whatever, pretend that the rib cage is your chest support and wrap your lats around that rib cage or around that chest support. You know what I mean? And that is what we're looking for, that opening and closing, right? So let's go through. I have a video of my client, Adam, and I think focusing on some things that we see pretty common issues with is a good idea here. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but lats is always a problem, right?
I could probably make my entire coaching career on getting people to grow lats.
Yeah, 100%, man. So I'll just play this video right quick, and I'll touch on my points, and then I'll see what you think about it. Does that sound come through there?
No, it's quiet.
Okay, cool. So when Adam sent me this, the pointers that I gave him is, one, slow down the concentric a little bit, or slow down the eccentric. I'm sorry. I don't want him just letting go, right? So slow that down. Second, I want you to have the intent of pushing your elbow forward the entire time, but that does not mean that my elbow cannot travel back, right? So if we go to like the bottom of his movement, right? Like in some of these reps, let's see if I can find it here. We still have a good bit of room where there is tension that we can still put through that lat.
Yep.
Now, the way that he's going to be able to get more out of it without it just all being bicep here is for him to lean back a little bit, right? Like all he needs to do, he's perfectly upright with that cable. His torso is exactly aligned with that cable, right? So I told him, I said, this is fantastic. Lean back just a little bit and then continue driving that elbow forward and get it all the way down, right? And the most common thing I see is when people do their lat movements, they get here and they're done, right? They're like, all right, I pushed it as far forward as I can. And it's like, well, we still have all of that there. But my intent, that elbow push forward, is also the same concept as, let me try to get my elbow as far away from my shoulder as I can. And I'm doing that the whole way. So I'm pushing my elbow forward and down, right? And it's arcing all the way through. Like I can still contract all the way back to here. So if I'm able to at least angle myself right, like, if you have a Nautilus pull down or something, you don't have to stop just because you got to the side of your body. Keep your torso forward and drive that bitch as far back as you can, right? Like when we go to show a Christmas tree on stage, we don't just like half get it back there. We're flexing it all the way back, trying to show as much as we can. So think the same thing here. So what I was telling him is like, where you're doing this right now, like execution is good, but in order to get that full range of motion, you need to lean back, or we're just going to get more bicep out of this. And that's not what I want here. Yeah. So what do you see here, boss?
So this is actually one of my favorites. I have the fortune of having the new tech pull down at raw that mimics this almost identically, so I don't have to get on my knees on the floor anymore. I would actually change the setup here to get some of the things we were just talking about on pecs for your lats. I would switch his knees, throw his working hip behind the pad, non-working arm brace straight on that handle, as you said, to get you that little bit of a lean. What switching his sides is going to do is going to get him some of that cross-body stretch without having to worry about it, right? Because the cable's in the middle. So if we can work on our left, from the left, you're going to get a little bit of this anyway. He's going to scoot himself back a little bit just to get in position. I also find that to be a much more stable location, because if you put that pad in the crease of your hip, you're not going anywhere, right?
So you're saying just same position, same leg, but just flip to the other side? Or you're saying
so
this
actually
leg break on this side?
Take himself all the way to the other side of the machine.
Yeah. So have him come over here, but is he keeping that same leg braced, or he's bracing the other leg?
So if you're working left arm, then right hip into the pad.
Cool.
Left arm, left leg bent.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's not. This doesn't have to be specifics, right? Like, as long as it works for you, then I don't really care on the particulars. But the core concepts we're talking about are what we're after, and that's that little bit of a lean or a cross-body motion, being able to get backwards a little bit so that this isn't a curl, right? Because we're not trying to curl the weight, and we're not trying to row it, trying to pull it down. If you're feeling your bicep a lot in this movement, that should be an immediate cue for you that something's off. And for me, for lats, I mean, if I pull up some of my videos, you'll notice I'm almost always leaning to the working side, right? Like I'm leaning almost away from the machine. One, because I think it gets you a little bit of better contraction, and two, because it drives in that cross-body motion just inevitably. And this is the machine I was talking about. The new Tech Pulldown, which is incredible. I love this thing. And you're doing the things that I already talked about, right? You have a little bit of a lean to your working side. You're getting that cross body just because of the way the machine's designed and where you're sitting. You're not coming up all the way. We don't need to be up here to get lats trained, but we also don't want to stop at 90, right? And like you said, you don't got to stop when your elbow hits your torso. Drive that right to the midline, get a little micro pause, and then come back up.
Yep. Yeah. And the same thing that I talked about just a second ago of like cueing yourself with the chest support to wrap things around your rib cage, right? Like that chest support is in my rib cage here, and I'm just leaned. Like if I was able to just be completely straightforward, it'd be right here in the middle, and then that would be where I would open and close, right? But here I'm kind of lean, like we talked about, and it's kind of braced in on this side. Then from here, this rib cage and this lat are opening up and around, right? Like you talked about with that fan-shaped muscle. It's like if this is my rib cage, I want that lat to kind of swoop out and open, right? Think lat spread, right? I'm getting that position and pushing lats out and wide, and that's what I'm looking to get at that top, is that stretch, right? That I want that stretch here, not just arbitrarily up here where it's now loaded into my shoulder joint like you were talking about. It's like I don't need to get to the end range of my shoulders range of motion. I need to stretch my fucking lat.
Especially for lats too. I mean, I'm all about range of motion. If you can get there, like if you can get through a massive active range of motion or every movement, I'm all for it. But especially if you have a weakness on lats, the biggest thing I would be looking for in your movements is your shoulder lifting while you're doing this. Because if your shoulder comes up, I can almost tell you for a fact that you're initiating that movement with everything on between your rear delt and your middle back, right? It's not a lat that's doing that movement. So if you're going to be looking to develop lats, and not that this needs, and I take a lot of this stuff from Nick Law, we're not after eliminating shoulder movement, but it's not something we're driving for, right? So it's okay if it's there. But especially if you're someone who has trouble connecting with your lats, if you get that range of motion too far and your shoulder lifts and you lose that tension and feeling in your lat, you're not going to initiate on the way down. And if you can't initiate with it, you're almost certainly not going to finish with it to the end of the movement.
Yep. And now just to take that point from a pull down to a row, same exact concept here, right? I'm doing a single arm row with the new Tech row. I'm not sure if you have this one at your gym. I'd fucking love this thing. This is
we have the one with no chest pad, just the grip. But
oh, bro, this thing is this is like This is like what Hammer Strength wishes.
I was gonna say they
done.
took all the hammer strength shit and did what it should have been from the beginning.
Well, so the foot pad is adjustable. That foot pad down there goes up and down, right? So that you can change where you want. The chest pad obviously like comes forward and back, but also angles up and down. And then you can also independently rotate the chest pad itself. So it's great because the issue that I have with the Hammer Strength row is I brace my hand in on the chest support, and then I have nothing supporting my chest. Right. So with this one, you can see that chest pad's in my torso, but I also have this hand grip here where I can grab that. So now I can push into that handle, have leverage on the non-working hand, and be able to drive into my elbow on the other side, drive into my hip on the other side. Now, same concept. Once I get set, I'm letting my rib cage open around that pad, right? Now, the one thing I will say here that I looked at this video and I was like, I got to change that. I'm rotating way too much because this motherfucker's heavy. This was a day like I had been hitting 3 for a while and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to 3.5. I put that 3.5 on. I was like, shit. But the goal here is like I want to stay forward into that chest pad, and then I want to open my lat around that pad and then drive it all the way back as far as I can with that intent of my elbow driving down. Again, that shoulder not hiking up to this position, because this is not, I'm not trying to stretch and go this way, because you're probably going to roll your fist out or roll your elbow out. And then again, like you were talking about, we're going to start initiating from rear delts, from traps, from anywhere but what we are trying to initiate from. So
it's actually a great point. I see that all the time in the gym, people that are doing rows or pull downs and they rotate that fist. I know it looks cool and you feel a stretch, but if your goal is to build a certain part of your back, your back's a very, very strong and very, very complex group of muscles, right? So it's going to find the easiest way to move that from A to B if you give it that opportunity. And one of the ways you do that is by unlocking your grip and turning your hand over, by unlocking your shoulder and letting your shoulder ride, by getting kind of loosey-goosey with your stability and rocking back and forth, or using your lower back. All those are opportunities to take stress off the muscle you're trying to train. And there are a hell of a lot more weak lats on stage than there are weak upper backs. Or
I was just about to ask you, I was about to say, in your entire career and the entire time you've watched people get on stage, have you ever looked at a physique and gone, man, that guy has no traps and all lats?
It's not even once.
Never. It doesn't exist, right? And I said, I've actually got a video going up of this here sometime this week. I recorded it in a YouTube video with my client, Blake, and he's doing a neutral grip lat row, right? And the thing I talked about is like the reason that everyone has traps and no one has lats is because you're trying to train your lats like you train your traps. And your traps are way fucking stronger than your lats. So drop the ego, right? Like me on that video I just showed there, I openly admit that was way too heavy. And I didn't go that heavy today when I did it. So, and form was better and whatnot. So, you need to go lighter, because if you try to go really heavy while doing a lat movement, the number one place you're going to end up moving is your traps, right? You're going to end up shrugging into it, and then you're going to go, yeah, cool, I'm super strong. And then the next time you get on stage, you're still going to have fucking lats. And you're going to be like, what? I just did all this to be, you know what I mean? Like, just drop the ego. And that is the number one. If you want to build a back, drop the ego. That is the number one thing. Like, you can ego train your traps for sure. Like we've all seen a million guys do shrugs way too much to have just traps up to here. It's pretty easy to build, but you cannot take that same thought process and apply it to lats. It's not going to happen. You will never have them unless you're Ronnie Coleman.
No, and I've said that often as well. Is like, obviously there are correct, quote unquote correct cues for training upper and middle back. But at some point, if you get strong at an upper middle back row, your muscles probably grow, right? Like that's just the way that muscle group works. It's already strong. It's already got a mechanical advantage in most of the movements we're gonna be doing. You probably don't need to get hyper specific and very accurate, though it helps. I won't say that it doesn't, but that's probably not one of those places like a T-bar row. Do I need you to be like absolutely precise in a T-bar row? Like, probably not. Not to the degree that I need you to be precise on a single arm lat pull down or a lat row or a pullover, right? Pullovers, honestly, we're going to hit that next week because pullovers are probably the second worst executed movement in the gym by far. Which I honestly sometimes avoid programming them because it takes so long to cue somebody correctly to do them.
The thing is if I can get my hands on them in person, I'll fix it in a second. Like, because the easiest thing I do is just put my fucking hand on their shoulder. I do this. That is quite literally the thing that fixes most people's lat training is if I'm there and I just put my hand on their shoulder and just push down, they go, oh, I feel my lats. Like, it's insane to me. But it's a great point. I think the pullover would be a great idea for next week. But we'll do let's just to touch on the point right quick, just because we're already on back right now, and you kind of brought it up already of like when I'm doing upper back movements, I'm okay with getting a little sloppy and moving some shit because I know how my back contracts and works. So let's just show that a little bit. I'll show this video of right, guys, please submit videos because I don't want to keep showing me the whole fucking time. And I've got a bunch of stuff from clients and whatnot too, but like I should have synced my phone before this because the videos or whatever. But so right now we'll just kind of go through these things here. But this is that mega mass T-bar row that everybody wants to load as much as they possibly can. And now I can't say a lot. I got 5.5 plates on this. That's a lot of fucking weight for a T-bar, right? But what you're going to see is like my chest does come up off the pad, but it's much more to complete the drive of my traps together more than it is me driving from me lifting up off the pad. Right now, it starts to get heavy right here. And what you're going to see is me shift to where now I'm going to kind of rock into it. I'm going to throw it a little bit. Then my favorite saying to this is like, put a little dick in it. You know, like show me that you can fucking get this shit because that's what's going to work. Right. And I don't want you doing that from rep 1. I don't need you. Look, Branch, I love you. But I don't want you looking like Branch Warren and like slinging it and letting your arms follow through and whatnot. I'm literally like, if I don't lift my chest stuff up off that pad a little bit, I don't get the full drive that I need. And I don't get my traps all the way together. And then I am going to lack the little bit of lower trap that I can get and the full depth to that muscle because I'm not getting the full contraction. So I lift my chest up off the pad and kind of drive through it like that, but I'm not throwing it and then slinging my arms with it, catching the weight at the top, right? I am, once I start to fail, as a way to spot myself, right? I don't need 9 spotters around me to help me do this thing. I can do that myself and then finish off with a couple shrugs at the end just because it feels good.
Yeah, I think that the big change between training upper and middle back and so lats is the shoulders, right? Like, and you demonstrate it very well here. It's like, I want to see your shoulders sunk as far forward as they can possibly get to the point where you feel like you're going to break your clavicle, your sternum. And then I want you to drive your shoulders and elbows as far back as you can possibly get them. I don't really care at all, for the most part, what the movement looks like, as long as you can get your elbows and shoulders forward and your elbows and shoulders back. If you can do that without hurting yourself over 6 months, you're going to grow an upper and middle back. It's going to happen. And especially with these machines, especially like this one where it's linear, like there's only so many places your joints can go when the movement is completely linear, right? Yeah. So movements like this, movements like T-bar, where you have inherent stability, you've already got 3 points of contact while you've got 2 hands on the machine, right? You've got your chest, both feet, and both hands attached to the machine, and it only moves in a single path. There's really not many degrees of freedom. Rip it and rip it sometimes, man. The one thing I will say though, and I don't need to call him out or name drop, but a while back, Justin Batterina and I were talking about how to bring his back up and help him for a little bit. And he just kind of went and did his own thing, and he's done fantastic. But while we're talking about all of these things, right, bringing up lats or bringing up upper and middle back, the single thing I would focus on the most if you have a weakness is execution. It's not frequency. It's not load. It's not volume. If you go back and look at Justin's back from a year or 2 ago and look at it today, and then look at all the training videos he's posted of back training between then and now, he is the most precise. I would argue even too precise for my liking, but it's clearly working for him, right? One of the most precise trainers I've ever seen. And his back has gone from a liability to arguably a strength of his once you drive in that ability to execute, then you can do some of these things we're talking about where, hey man, throw an extra plate on there and grip and rip. You know, chase after the lower reps, the higher loads, the more volume, the more frequency, whatever. But if we want more good, not more shit, right? So you got to develop the good first, and then you can get more good out of it.
Yeah, doing more volume with bad execution isn't going to help you at all, right? And yeah, you're 100%. Like I think one of the hardest parts of taking someone through the lifespan of a training program is the first hardest part is getting their execution down. Like we've both dealt with people that it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, do you know what left and right is? You know, it's like sometimes it's like it's shit that it's like this shouldn't be this difficult. Sometimes it's just minor tweaks. It's like, oh yeah, this is pretty good, but we just want minor shifts. Taking someone from like not really executing well at all to executing well is the first hard one. The next hard one is taking someone from being really, really precise and then teaching them how to break that rule.
Yes.
Let me show you how to break this rule a little bit and go 90% of your set should look like this. That last little 10%, show me you got it. Put a little dick into it. Like I already said, like let's move some shit. You know what I mean? Like let's not be afraid of weight, but let's make sure we ingrain that pattern first, and then let me teach you how to break that rule. And then last movement that I want to go through, just so that we don't go super long on this, is a movement that I see done wrong all the time, and it's dips. Adam doesn't do a bad job here. Adam does fairly well, but whoops, what the hell happened there? There we go. But the biggest thing that I told him here is like he's kind of letting his head move a lot, and it gets more into the set, right? And what that is doing is he is trying to make room for his arms to go back, right? Instead of thinking about doing like a rug, oh my God, doing a shrug in the top or in the stretch, like I'm pulling up and back into my traps, he is making room by moving his neck because his traps just want to go straight up, right? Most people just want to do this. They get that bar and they end up here, right? And they're just bouncing around into this. When the reality is I can get way more stretch by pulling super far up into my traps and then pushing down, right? And now I tip, like there's a couple of different ways to do dips. There's like
what did you program these for? Are these programmed for like pec minor and chest?
Yes. Yeah. I typically will do chest stuff with a dip just because I want it to be a power movement. I'm not going to tell them, hey, don't feel your triceps, right? Like we're going to get some triceps out of this. But I think dips are great for building overall depth to the chest. But yeah, so you can, what I told him here is like, keep your head still and pull into your trap. He's doing an okay job, but you can see where he starts to like, he's shorting that range. There's still a lot of range that the elbow can get up and back if he pulls up into those traps a lot more here. So that's something that's really good. Plus it's like if I was to set up a cable like really high, right? And I do flies from really high, that's kind of the intent of my dip here when I'm trying to hit chest, right? But it's just like a straight down movement. So I'm trying to kind of feel and scoop that low pec and drive my elbows together in the middle at the bottom, right? So I want to kind of feel that chest push out, you know?
Yeah, I'm actually, so for dips for chest, I'm actually a big fan of just doing them the old fashioned way, right? Get on a dip bar with a weight belt, add as much load as you need. But I haven't found, there's very few, in my opinion, dip machines that are giving us the range of motion and bar path that you want to get as much bend at your shoulder as possible to get that stimulus on the pec. And I think, honestly, I think the hammer strength one here is one of the worst. Granted, I know everyone does not have access to the equipment that you and I seem to have access to, which is phenomenal. But I think there are definitely better ways to achieve this than to use this machine. This to me has always been kind of an ego machine, right? Because like it's a bitch to work yourself in there. You got to jam that fucking knee pad down. The range of motion is really like 8 to 12 inches on the, from the handles. But I think there are definitely better ways to do it. But I mean, for all of this, guys, right? Look at what you're trying to train, and it can be as simple as where is the biggest change in angle between my joints, right? I want to train chest on a dip. I want the biggest change in angle to be between my upper arm and my torso. If I want to train triceps, then I want to get as much elbow flexion out of it as I can. And all these movements we talked about, the incidental flexion anywhere else, incidental movement of other joints is not the enemy, but it needs to be something you pay conscious attention to make sure that we're putting the load where it needs to be. Dips can be a bitch, right? Because everyone's gonna be stronger in a different form, different execution on this movement. But if you want to get the focus on your chest, at least in my opinion, this machine kind of sucks because you need to be a little bit farther forward, right? You need to have a little bit of a forward lean to be able to get those elbows really far behind you. And you need to have a bar path that allows you to keep in my opinion, it's really hard to do this without getting tricep involvement, right? So a little bit elbow flexion would be good too. This is almost the equivalent of like doing like a leg press with your feet at the top of the platform, right? Almost the same thing.
Well, so interestingly, I think if you could just belt yourself into this and face the other way, it changes this movement a lot. It changes this movement a lot because the number one thing here is the way he's facing right now is the arc is going the opposite direction of where we want him to pull his shoulders. Right now, could I tell him to turn around and belt himself in? Yes, but I still think that we can get enough out of this here by just making a couple of tweaks. I think the number one thing he needs to do is just drop that fucking seat. He's tall, right? So like if we just drop that seat down a little bit, we don't get as much of an aggressive arc this way, and he can kind of get into it a little bit more. Plus he gets more range of motion versus it just being this little short choppy thing that we're kind of seeing here. So it's that thing of like Mike was saying is like not everybody has access to the best equipment ever, but there are ways to make things work. So understand that like what we're saying is very nitpicky and going, well, we could do this or we could change that. But I guarantee I can walk into any gym and make something work somewhere in something. And the number one thing that we'll sign off with this, and then we'll beg people to send us videos so we don't just keep showing ourselves next time, is learn to pay attention to patterns, not just equipment, right? Because far too many people look at a piece of equipment and go, that does this, that does this, this does that, right? And the reality is that's not really how that works. And machines can be used in a number of different ways, right? So if the thing I always tell people is like when I put somebody's training program together, I don't have an exhaustive list of machines, right? If I program a hammer strength incline press, you don't have to have a hammer strength incline press. Whatever incline press you have available, that's fine. Whether it's a Smith or maybe you have really shitty equipment and the best thing we can do is a dumbbell, that's fine. The pattern is what I'm after. The angle is what I'm after, not necessarily the equipment that we're using. So like a great example to sign this off and then we can give your thoughts and we'll finish this up here. But like an RDL, a glute hyperextension, and a hip thrust. If you do all three of those movements in the same thing, you've done the same pattern 3 times. You are hinging at the hip and focused on your glutes, right? Like, yeah, sure, there's a little bit more hamstring in an RDL, and it's more focused on glutes with the hyper and this, that, and the other, but it is still a hip hinge pattern, right? That is what we're looking at. There's just slight different tweaks as to what they would hit and where we would program them. The number one thing is just don't be redundant. Like there's no reason for us to do an RDL, a hyper, and a hip thrust all in the same session going, I'm going to get big glutes. It's like, okay, you can do all 3 of those, but do them on different sessions. You can do 2 of them in one session, right? You can do 1 in 3 different sessions, whatever you want to do, however your program is laid out, but there's no reason to do 9 million versions of the same pattern.
100%. Yeah. And I think unless you have, one of the more expansive gyms in the country, which I know you and I have access to, which is fantastic, but unless you have that, you're going to have to get pretty particular about what you choose to train on and how you choose to execute, right? And when you talk about repeating patterns, one of the things I would bring up is there's more to it than just, is this training the same muscle, right? Because you mentioned the hip thrust and RDLs, and we talked earlier about how for the most part, your hip thrust is a shortened range of motion movement, right? That pairs fantastically with doing an RDL on something like a pit shark, where the load is the highest when you are completely in the hip flexion, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same thing goes, we talked about lats. My back day has four back movements on it. Two of them are lats, but one of them is training lats where the load is heaviest almost at the bottom, and the other is pullovers where I'm bent over and the load is highest when I'm in my stretch, right? Mm-hmm. So there's more than just, are these movements the same? And when you guys are looking at this, what equipment am I going to pick? How am I going to lay my training session out? It can also be, okay, where and how is it stimulating the target muscle? So there's a little bit more to that. I don't want to drive, unnecessary complexity or paralysis by analysis in anybody's training. I mean, this is why, you and I help people with this stuff. But if you're insistent on, doing it yourself and forging your own way, think about those kind of things when you go in and design the training session, right? Are my two upper back movements, are they the same, or can I change them so that they're doing different things for me? And man, people have been getting huge for decades on the most basic of equipment, right? We are spoiled, especially by the whole new tech line right now, everything they've got. We are absolutely spoiled by the amount of equipment we have to go through some pretty precise motions. But man, you talk about Branch and Johnny and those guys, they were trained on dumbbells, barbells, and the most basic shit that every single gym has. And Branch is one of the biggest dudes to ever walk the planet. So like, don't give me the excuse that you don't have the right equipment to do it, because everyone has what they need to get it done. There might be some extremes, right? Where if you're 300 pounds, maybe dumbbell bench isn't the best movement for you, because throwing up 200s in each hand is probably not worth the risk. But aside from those extreme circumstances, like, you can get it done.
Yep, for sure. So again, like I said, we're gonna beg you guys, send us some stuff. We both tried to put stuff up. We're both like, dude, I didn't get shit. So we put this together fast. But I really think that this is something that people really need to watch. I think this is a really cool idea, and it's not being done a lot. We see a lot of like Rate Your Physiques, and Full Odds done some stuff here and there where like they'll talk about people's training and whatnot. But I really think that we can help a lot of people with this. So if you want your videos to be on the next episode, send them to Mike or myself on Instagram, or wherever the fuck you find us. Just send it over to us. Let us know that you want us to break some stuff down, and we'll be happy to do it. I don't know how often we'll do this. It'll kind of depend on you guys. So like, if we get overwhelmed with videos, maybe we can do it more often. But if we just get some people piddling here or there, like, we'll just do it when we can, So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and leave us comments down below. Let us know what things you see and what things you would like us to touch on next time, and we'll catch you on the next episode of whatever the fuck we call this. Okay.